The term foreign hand gained currency in India in the 60s and 70s when there was widespread belief that foreign intelligence agencies had infiltrated India to destabilize its polity and put in place key individuals either in the cabinet or in the higher echelons of power to ensure friendly governments in India vis a vis the great powers. In simple terms, the foreign hand was a ruse of Indira Gandhi to point fingers at the CIA and its role in destabilizing the country. Of course, Indira Gandhi was a master at diversionary tactics to take attention away from poverty and other real problems facing the country. Nevertheless, there could have been some truth in the foreign hand hysteria during that time, considering that it was the era of coup d'etats and gunboat diplomacy, and regime change was a favorite game of the great powers. Though, in all honesty, the role of the then Soviet Union and its intelligence agency, the KGB, was far more pervasive and inimical in financing the left parties to influence polity in India. That was then. What is now? That is the question I'm raising in this episode. The short answer to the question is that there is a definite and a highly dangerous and inimical foreign hand operating in India today. I will expand on this in a bit, but first, welcome everyone to this episode of the CAA Show, in which CAA is, of course, conversation and analysis, and my name is Juggi Bhasin. Before I identify this foreign hand, let us first understand what is at stake for a hostile foreign power to unleash its dark forces to realize certain objectives in India. Well, for starters, even though we are a developing country, we are one of the largest economies in the world. We have a huge population dividend, which is a dream come true for all kinds of entities ranging from transnational corporates to missionary outfits who wish to push their agenda in India. In short, we still are, as we were in the 60s, a country of great potential for all and diverse kind of interests in the world. Who would not like to have a presence in India? However, in the present scenario, it is not so simple for foreign forces to bulldoze their way in the country or crudely or subtly bring pressure on political entities in India. We have one of the largest and most potent armies in the world, a relatively upbeat economy, and most important, a government that is very conscious of its religious identity and heritage. Therefore, it is next to impossible for hostile intelligence agencies to blatantly influence polity in India. And yet, foreign forces are still very much active in India and subtly exert pressure on the government. How do they do it? The short answer is that they do it through Indians themselves, especially through the tribe of a small group of Indians inimically ill disposed to the present regime in India. These Indians work in both international and national media. Many are academics and professors in well known Western universities, and many more are in United Nations related agencies and in the non governmental sector in the so called not for profit think tanks and humanitarian agencies operating in India and abroad. Many of these agencies have taken on the prescriptive role upon themselves that they best know what is good for India and how India should make her democratic, social, and economic choices. Unlike the earlier days, when foreign governments through agent provocators would destabilize regimes, it is now these outfits which tap into the so called liberal minded Indians working for them to push through their agendas. If you scan closely the completely biased India reporting in the New York Times or the Washington Post or Al Jazeera, usually the correspondent who files the story is an Indian, disenchanted with his own country and government. In case of the academics who rave and rant against the Indian government, you go back in their history, their personal history, and you will find that many of them were unable to settle down well in their own country and left India in the 70s and 80s for the West and better prospects. Today, their condition is a parody of the 60s era NRI uncle who returned home from the West with suitcases full of terracotta shirts and cosmetics. Then, during those times, there used to be a waiting list of relatives who wanted those goodies. But unlike those uncles of the 60s, today there are note takers for the economic views, theories, and fanciful lectures on democracy of these academics when they come back to India. We have evolved our own concepts and moved on, but these academics are stuck in a time warp, and there are no takers in India for their prescriptive models. Case in point are the fanciful theories of Amartya Sen and Abhijit Banerjee, which, forget about India, have not been adopted by even a single country in the developing world. With no one willing to listen to them back in India, they turn on the government of the day and attack it on economic, social, and religious parameters. Similarly, the not very bright who could not land decent jobs in the corporate sector in India eventually got absorbed in the non-governmental sector in the West and turned on India with unmitigated virulence. These three streams by and largely define the foreign hand operating against India, which at any given point in time is dead set against the present government and keeps bashing it on any economic, political, or social pretext. We all saw the kind of havoc this foreign hand played both in the national and international fora when the Delta COVID variant struck India some time back. They caused real damage to so many sectors in India, and if you ask me, their pernicious influence and damage was far more devastating than any damage an intelligence operative could have caused way back in the 60s and 70s. The emergence of this unregulated foreign hand is the single biggest challenge and threat facing India. To my mind, these are a far more potent threat than the external threats of Pakistan and China and other foreign governments. This loosely aligned band of so-called liberal, egoistic, arrogant, gadfly troublemakers will challenge the government more and more in the years to come. Question is, are we even beginning to understand the enormity of this threat looming before us? Do we possess the sagacity to see through their games? And do we have the will to neutralize these threats before they cause incalculable damage? Only time will tell. So on that note, it's goodbye for me, and I hope you enjoyed this particular episode of the CAA Show. Do subscribe to us, and it's goodbye and cheers till next time.